this slide summarizes the goal or the steps that you need to set for your donors. So that's the moves management that we were talking about last session. That's the donor growth chart. But like I said, we want to grow them in their giving, but before we can grow them in their giving, they need to grow spiritually in their knowledge of God and in the area of giving and generosity. Again, let's summarize. From suspects, you turn them into prospects. After you qualify them, after you cultivate them, they become a one-time donor because they probably attend one of your events, no? And you kept the threshold low and they were able to give a one-time gift. But you don't stop there. You want to make them a second gift. You want to make them a repeat donor. So the idea is get them into the habit of giving to your organization. And you don't do that as an automated thing, but you want to grow them as a steward who understand that the money that they are blessed with is not just for their own personal consumption, but also for use for needy people and for building God's kingdom. And then after they have turned into regular donor, you want to challenge them further. As they grow in their knowledge, in their giving, in their generosity, they become major donors. And finally, before the end of their life, they become estate donors. These are people who make their last will and testament, and they include their favorite nonprofit organization who has become part of their family, to be part, to become part of their estate, meaning they leave behind their estate. It could be real estate, property, it can be other forms of property, it can be cash, and they include your organization. So now we don't have a lot of those in the Philippines because fundraising is pretty much a baby in the Philippines. So we're still here, we're still developing regular donors, but eventually as these donors mature in their giving, then they should be able to give bigger sum of their wealth to the organization. Remember Bill Gates, what did he say? His net worth is now $90 billion, right? And he's giving most of that away. And he said, I am not giving the main bulk of my net worth to my children, but I'm giving it away for use for good in the world. So, and Bill Gates is not a professed Christian, but he's a philanthropist, and we need more Christians to be generous like Bill Gates. If people who do not profess to be Christians can be as generous as him, how much more, no, we as people of God. And we understand that we're just fleeting sojourners on this earth. And what our purpose is while we are here on earth is to grow in our relationship with God, because we will be worshiping Him for all eternity. And part of worship is giving of our time, our wealth, our resources. This is our last slide. And what I like to show you here is a matrix of an integrated and comprehensive fundraising program. If you are into institutional fundraising, you want to diversify your income, and you want all the fundraising activities, all the fundraising programs and projects to be integrated. Remember, we were talking about a resource development plan. So part of your resource development plan would reflect the various fundraising programs that you want to put in place if you want to have a sustainable fundraising. The annual fund, and we're going to talk about the annual fund at length later on, is the building block of all fundraising. The annual fund is the money you need to raise in order to support your current programs and operational expenses. That's basic. Okay. Now, after you have raised your annual budget, you don't want to be raising the annual fund for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Otherwise, you're just on maintenance mode. So, you embark on a capital campaign to increase your assets, to improve your facilities. And that is where the capital fund campaign will come in. This can be in the form of building fund, renovation, asset building campaign, special projects campaign, in-kind solicitation, and pledge over several years. Because some people, like the example I gave you for Campus Crusade, in their pledge campaign for $1 million, it will be over their lifetime, giving over their lifetime, $1 million for Campus Crusade. Special purpose gift, every once in a while, you have a special purpose gift other than the annual fund, the capital campaign. Special purpose gift can be for specific program needs. For example, you have a new program. In our case, we set up the e-learning program. We're going online. So we needed funding other than our maintenance fund, our maintenance budget for the operational expenses. Of course, we now shifted to fiber optic. So that, because you know how slow internet is in the Philippines. So we're now paying double our internet service provider than it was before we shifted to fiber optic. And then, of course, when we convert our teaching content to e-learning, that takes money because you need to video, you need to train, you need to buy a learning management system, you need to buy or develop a school management system, you need to train, you need additional staff. So that's a special program need, and we had to apply for a special grant for that because it's not part of the regular annual fund or the regular capital campaign. When we also computerize the library, that's also considered a special project to put all the 40,000 volumes of books and literature on a database. Takes a lot of money, and we had to apply for special projects of special purpose gift for that. Also, equipment acquisition, if you want to computerize, if you want to change to digital format, then that's again a special, considered a special purpose gift. Personal additions, actually the secret why we were able to set up a resource development unit, because it used to be, remember, I was a one-woman shop doing all the fundraising, but after I trained in fundraising in the US, I came back and set up the resource development unit. Many organizations will not commit or will not invest money to a full-time resource development person, much less a full department, resource development department, because which goes first, the chicken or the egg? But you need to invest money in order to produce money, right? But the reason we were able to set up a resource development unit where we had our own office, we had a database manager, an alumni relations and events person, myself, and an admin person. So initially, we were about 3 or 4 to start the resource development department because we were able to get a grant for setting up local fundraising. The grant that was applied for was called Long-Term Financial Sustainability and Local Fundraising. And many funding agencies would like to support that kind of a project because it's like a capacity building for the indigenous organization to be sustained, to be financially sustainable, as well as produce indigenous support or local support. So I think for funding agencies, mission organizations who are leaving the Philippines, going to another areas, that could be an excellent exit strategy for them to build the capacity for long-term sustainability, financial sustainability, and fundraising by providing a grant to hire a full-time person, set up the fundraising program and a resource development unit, so that it was a 5-year grant that was given us. It was a diminishing amount, so that after the 3rd year, it was almost very little was left, because the idea was after 3 years of doing it, you would have produced results. So within actually the first 2 years, we were able to generate local support for ATS. And we were able to turn around the 70% international support, 30% local into 70% local and only 30% international support. By now, we're almost 80 to 99% locally supported for our operational expenses. So it's just a matter of committing resources or sourcing the resources needed for it, because many partners, international partners or funding agencies would support that kind of a special purpose gift. Planned gift is what we talked about, estate giving. This is where an individual would plan a long-term gift for the organization before she or he passes on, or when he or she dies, then there's enough money to support their favorite charitable institution or church or non-profit organization. Endowment, like I said, is in the form of a big chunk, a big sum of money where the institution, the recipient institution, uses only the interest. The rest of the sum is held in the bank, but you only use the interest out of that. So if we were able to get a professional chair for 2 million pesos, if you put it in a very conservative instrument like time deposit, which yields what, less than 10% interest per annum, if it's 2 million, that's still 200,000 per annum. So it's enough to support a small salary of a professor. It can also be for scholarship. And then prospect research. Now this is very important, and you have to pay attention that part of the comprehensive fundraising program is having a prospect support. What is this? Or prospect research. Remember that when you grow your donor database, there is attrition. There are people who will stop supporting your organization for various kinds of reasons. And usually it's 15% attrition per annum. So you need to replace lost donors or people who stop giving to you. And you also need to gain new donors at the same time. That should be part of your fundraising goals. And what prospect research does is continue identifying prospective donors, and then continue getting information about names in the list, about the current donors. You have what we call data mining. Because names are important. You want to grow your constituency. You want to grow your donor base. If you have events, you can data mine the information from participants. Make sure you get their names, their contact information, what they do, their position, their organization, their address, their email, their mobile number, so that if you have this kind of information in some kind of a database, then you can include them in your mailing list, or you can invite them to your events. Always keeping in mind that prospecting is one of an important element in long-term fundraising. So all of this would comprise a comprehensive and integrated fundraising program. What are your strategic choices when you're doing resource development planning? When you plan your resource development, if you are starting out as an organization, or maybe your first to fifth year of inception, your strategic choice or strategic goal for resource development is growth. You want to grow your donor database, you want to grow your prospect list. At the same time, you're growing your mission, your organization. Second level of strategic thrust or choice is involvement. So now you have a list of people, you have their names, you know them. Some of them have already visited you. You want them involved. How do you get them engaged in your organization? And we know that the more involved people are in your organization, the more chances of them becoming partners with you in your organization. Now, the third level, visibility, this is for the more mature organization. Organizations like World Vision, Compassion, UNICEF, they're already very visible. People know what World Vision is. And if that is one of your goals, to be visible, then you have to start from your own community. And you grow until you are known in Metro Manila, you are known throughout the country, and maybe you're even known internationally. So visibility is one goals or strategic choice that you can choose. And how do you do that? You do that by engaging celebrities, by having media mileage, by producing more events. And when you have events, make sure you invite the media. Invite the media, because media, they're always looking for stories to tell. And we don't want to just read stories about murder and crime and killings and how many drug addicts were killed today. But let's give them good stories, good positive stories that will inspire people. And that is where you will come in as kingdom builders, as transformers. You're doing good in the community. By all means, tell your story. If you cannot invite the media, then provide them with a press release or a media release, a media packet for them to write about your event, your organization. So in the States, some charitable institutions even stage events for the sake of having media mileage. While we have legitimate causes here, we have legitimate events that we do, why can't we also offer them to the media? In fact, public service announcements are free. You can do that if you have events. And our media is mandated by law to give 10% of their time, radio and television, to public service announcements. So you can write public service announcements. That's why you hear over the radio and on television, alumni homecomings, etc. But they're not limited to announcements about alumni homecoming. You can also give them public service announcement announcing your event, your NGO event, or other production that you have in your organization. Efficiency, I think, remember efficiency and stability. Let's go, before I go to the next slide. Efficiency refers to the amount of money you need to invest in order to raise your goal, your fundraising goal. So, if you are an efficient organization, you would spend maybe 10 centavos for every 1 peso raised. But if you're a starting organization, maybe for every 1 peso raised, you're spending 1 peso 50 centavos or 2 pesos. So, lugi pa, no? Losses. Because you still don't know. You're still doing hit and miss. But efficiency is one of your goals in fundraising. Stability refers to long-term financial sustainability and stability. So what are some on the right column? You will see some of the specific goals for each of these objectives or choices. For growth, you want revenue increases at an acceptable rate, meaning you want, remember the 5-year grant that we got? It was only for 5 years. So we were under constraint to produce. So first year, we're still putting the program in place, producing fundraising collaterals, starting out the programs. But on the second year, we started already getting gains from our efforts. So that on the third year, you can see there's already an increase in the fundraising income for the organization. Involvement, again, refers to the donors' involvement in your organization, organizational affairs. And then for visibility, you want more public support, you want good public image, no? And until you become a household name. Your brand becomes a household name, like World Vision is a household name. Efficiency refers to the lowest cost per peso, like I explained earlier. You spend less because you're more efficient now, then you're able to raise more money. That is where evaluation, monitoring and evaluation is important. We need to put monitoring and evaluation in place because if you keep repeating different fundraising programs, event strategies year after year, and you don't evaluate, how can you know which program, which activity produces the most efficient and the best result? For example, you keep doing a banquet, a fundraiser, a fundraising banquet, but you don't evaluate. You don't know whether it is good to put time, money, and resources into that kind of an activity versus personal one-on-one solicitation that yields better results for you. And then stability is survival over the long haul. If you are stable, that means that you don't worry about your operational expenses, and then you have a buffer of 3 to 6 months operational expenses, and the CEO or the executive director or the pastor does not lose sleep because you keep thinking where the money will come from for the salaries of the people. That means, in fact, if you are an organization that has been doing fundraising at an efficient level, then you can already predict the amount of income that you will receive from each of the different fundraising programs that you have in place. It can be predictable and stable.